Hello everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Holland Land Office Museum's Artifact Video Series. My name is Ryan Duffy and I'm the director of the museum, and this week we're going to talk about one of the music institutions of Genesee County, probably the most well known, and that is the Genesee Symphony Orchestra. Now the GSO, as it is known, is one of the longest standing municipal orchestras in the state of New York, and it's hosted right here in Batavia. Now, the GSO has not always been known as the Genesee Symphony Orchestra. When it began back in 1947, it was known as the Batavia Civic Orchestra. And when it began, it was the brainchild of three men in particular, Mr. Norman Hall, Mr. Hugh Lawning, and Dr. Bijou Mansueto were sort of the three heads that got the Civic Orchestra together and began its history. Now, in 1947, the orchestra opened up in the Dipson Theater and was hosted to over 1,400 people filled the theater in order to watch the opening of the Batavia Civic Orchestra. And it had humble beginnings though, as it actually practiced over the Plaza Restaurant, which was on Main Street, about where the mall is today in Batavia. So of course the building that it was in no longer stands, but that gives you an idea where it was located. And they invited basically any sort of musicians with various quality from around Batavia. And initially they had too many string players and not enough brass players and not enough percussion, so they had to sort of scramble and fill in positions, and people began learning new instruments and getting further training in order to help fill out the orchestra. By its second season, they had actually changed venues to the Mancuso Theater. So in their second season in 1948 and 1949, that is where they played. And basically, they played many different venues throughout its history, and not just theaters in Batavia, but in churches, in schools, at Genesee Community College for many years as well. So they've bounced around, but have played many different venues with always great quality and success. Now, the first conductor of the Genesee Symphony Orchestra was Jan Walenek out of Buffalo. He was actually the director of music at the University of Buffalo, and he conducted the GSO for its first 8 years before moving on to Florida, where he actually started the Hollywood, Florida Civic Orchestra, and then also did a lot of work with the Miami Symphony as well as others in Florida, so he was rather well known. The symphony orchestra throughout its history has gone through 15 conductors from around the area, mostly brought in from Buffalo or Rochester. The current conductor, Shave Zajac, is out of Rochester. He's been with the symphony orchestra now nearly 5 years. But over time, the orchestra has grown, and eventually, in 1958, it actually changed its name to the current name, Genesee Symphony Orchestra, as it began to expand its influence and welcome in musicians from around Genesee County, not just Batavia. And this has allowed its influence to grow and its popularity to grow, as it does many concerts normally throughout the year, and often plays outdoors even, in Centennial Park here in Batavia, as well as other places. And is even played here at the Holland Land Office Museum, though not as a whole orchestra, but members of it have played here, even as recently as this Christmas. The GSO has also grown in fame, has been able to welcome many world-class musicians to play with them as guest musicians. So it's not just even musicians of Genesee County that are brought into the area, but musicians from around the world because of the Genesee Symphony Orchestra. Now, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about the GSO, we do have a display here at the Holland Land Office Museum, but you can always feel free to check them out at their website and learn more about them and check out where they'll be playing next, or at least when they'll be playing. As with the current situation, they are doing some more virtual things or playing outdoors and things, but they are always a great listen to, and we really do hold them to our hearts closely here in Genesee County because they are quite an institution and bring a lot of musical joy to the people of Genesee County. So I hope you enjoyed this edition of our Artifact video series about the Genesee Symphony Orchestra. If you missed any of our past videos, you can feel free to check them out at our YouTube channel, Holland Land Office Museum, and you can check out all the rest. We're nearing 40 videos in the series, so there's been a lot of different topics covered. And we hope that you watch us in the future as we'll be continuing to put these out every week about different topics from Genesee County's history.